2 o'clock hour, time to talk business. Let's talk fix right here, 92.3 Nigeria Info FM. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Yes, we're always here to talk about and help make sense of the business world. And on this 19th day in the month of March, we'll do nothing less. My name is Choma Ezenwafo, and I'm your host on Talking Figures. And today, there's a lot to unpack. And we'll try to take on, because my question today is when rate. I'm asking that question because if I look at what's going on at the moment, I'm sure when I say this, you're thinking instead of emergency, but it's even there's much more for businesses. When I look at what's going on, let's start from the bottom and then walk it through to the top, okay? Okay, so currently, the landing cost of imported petrol dropped to 797 naira per litre. That happened on Monday, and it happened as oil marketers were planning to cut the volume of fuel they buy to reduce their losses. The new drop happened at a time that there's been a lot of price war in the downstream oil sector. And in fact, last week, the Dangote refinery quietly implemented a price reduction at each loading gantry because they reduced the petrol from 825 naira per litre to 815 naira. Now, that 10 naira price reduction prompted a competitive reaction from private fuel depots, and they were forced to adjust theirs. The price war, like we all know, has benefited us as Nigerians because some people, you see, no longer selling 900 and something. Some still do, but I mean, you naturally would want to tilt towards those who are selling 890 currently in Port Harcourt. Now, why am I talking about this? It's the fact that uncertainty, we see oil marketers are asking for regulation now. They want a mandatory adjustment of prices every 6 months. Okay, and we're not sure if regulatory bodies are going to, do that. But the fact that with all of this reduction, we are yet to see it reflect at the filling stations. Because when you look at businesses, they're still struggling. We still have the electricity challenges. We still have people who's invested so much trying to tackle their power problem, but it's gone nowhere. We still have these situations and nothing has changed. Okay? And that's one side. On the other side, we hear of the explosion. And this explosion didn't just happen anywhere. It happened at the biggest oil pipeline this country's got. Yes, the Trans-Niger pipeline is one of Nigeria's largest oil pipelines. And it is here in Rivers State. And on Monday night, it exploded. And with that explosion would possibly come a shutdown. With that shutdown, would possibly come a reduction in the oil that we produce. Because I think it was just in January that we were finally able to produce more. And so this is March ending, and we see this happening. This pipeline currently transports over 450,000 barrels of crude oil daily, and is crucial for exporting oil to the Bonny terminal. And currently, while we do not know how that will impact, because the situation is still unfolding, a state of emergency has just been declared in Rivers State. So when you join all of this together, the question is, what's next for businesses in Rivers State? Yes, I believe we're live on Facebook now. We're also live on YouTube at Nigeria Info PH. And we are also on X at Nigeria Info PH. And we're here on WhatsApp. Yes, you can send me your messages on WhatsApp. I would love to hear from you. You tell me. Yes, you can drop your messages on this WhatsApp number, 0809 030 6416. You can also we're going to open the phone lines at some point because I would love to hear from you I'm seeing business creative, you're a business person. Somehow, because of all of what's happening at the moment, you've had to do some sort of refund or some sort of, a cutback or a pause of any project just to assess and understand exactly what the best way would be for you to approach. And that's the current situation right now for businesses in the business community. There is uncertainty, and when I turned my radio and saw that Constance was talking uncertainty, I chuckled. Because it's actually worse. The level of uncertainty in the business community is a different ballgame. But I'm not the one to talk to you about it. I'll be having a guest on the show. But let's first sort that all out. So I'll do on a quick break. When we come in, we'll begin. When I return, we'll begin proper. So stay tuned. Figures right here on 92.3 Nigeria Info FM. My guest is right here. He's joined me on telephone, rather. Yes, talking the president of the Rivers State Entrepreneurs and Investors Forum. He's joined me from Abuja, I believe, Mr. Bobmanuel Ibifiri. Thank you so much for making time for this.
Thank you. It's great being here with you.
Yes, it's been a while. Where have you been and how have you been?
Well, I've been fine. I've just been a little busy, but busy for the right reasons.
Yes. Okay, so you're going to tell us all about it. And then, of course, I have questions. My big question on the show today is what's next for Rivers businesses? We've talked about, yes, landing cost of petrol is dropping, but then we've had an explosion that people are concerned that is going to affect the oil production or whatever we've attained in January, or is it around? If we have all of this grapple, the state, what's next for businesses? This is a conversation when we look at all of this. So we'll go on a quick break. When we return, we'll talk some more. All right, so let's stay tuned. We'll go on to this break now.
You're listening to Talking Figures on 92.3 Nigeria Info. You're listening to Talking Figures on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
4 years ago, they told us we were consuming 60-something million. In less than 6 months, we increased it from 60-something million to 200 and something million. What were we doing with it? We're bathing with it.
On Talking Figures, we'll be talking business, crunching the numbers, following the money, and examining policy.
In policy communication, it has to be perfect. That's to say, during the policy communication, Nigerians would have known the day subsidy will end.
Expert views and opinions, informed analysis, and we'll take your thoughts too.
We've dollarized our economy. We've dollarized everything on the vagaries of the forex market.
Oil and gas, forex, fiscal policy, business.
approach. Before I went on the break, I talked about how we see businesses are already doing some sort of adjustments. And in times like this, and in these three issues I mentioned that we will have to grapple with, I'm sure there is all this is happening amidst all that we've always known that businesses have to deal with. Okay, so today, my guest is still here, Mr. Bobmanuel Ibifiri has just joined me on the show, and I'll just start now. Mr. Ibifiri, you're there, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so what's the first thing that crossed your mind when you heard about this state of emergency as a business person, as a business owner?
Well, what crosses the mind when we heard about the state of emergency? Obviously, for our business in River State. Because as investors in River State, we expect that the least the government should give to us is stable outlook. With a stable outlook, that affords us the opportunity to carry out our businesses and investment related cause for concern. So that's basically what would have gone through our minds, or that's what we're grappling with. Because the least we could ask for is just a stable outlook. And if we have the stable outlook, then we on our own can afford to carry out our businesses and thrive in carrying out our businesses, basically. So that's what we've been grappled with. And the fact that the political stalemate couldn't have been resolved amicably all this while, baffles me personally as a business leader in River State. It baffles me because we've always tried to go out of our way, as from the point of view of the private sector, to organize debates. And the whole essence behind organizing the debates and talking about is to refocus our minds towards policies as against as against violence and as against rancor. Because if we get the right set of policies right, the right minds of people in government, in governance, with the right set of policies, the potentials that the state has would then obviously be harnessed. But today, it is very clear that the potentials we have in River State is a mirage, the way it is. Because if you look at where we were before the advent of the current democracy we're enjoying, we're in, River State was heads and shoulders the best economy in Nigeria as at then. But if you just oppose that to what it is today, it's a far cry. Our interests should rather be centered around businesses, attraction of, and getting the right set of policies to attract those businesses into the state, as against who is a political gladiator and as against who holds sway when it comes to violence in the state. I think these are the issues that we've always wanted to try to bequeath to the states, and that's why we went out of our way to fund debates from our lean pulses to see that we get the government functionaries, the politicians, to come and converse their policies. Because the more we keep talking about policies, the more we begin to change our mindsets, they ingrain our mindsets with those right policies and working towards those right values that will drive businesses. So I think it's quite unfortunate that we find ourselves where we are today. And we're calling on everybody that has a role to play in all of this, situation, to take out these 6 months to sit back and reflect on the woes they brought to our very dear River State. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, and unfortunately, that's not all we are dealing with. Widening this, we see that yes, the landing cost of petrol has dropped, but we do not see this reflecting yet. We do not see businesses adjusting because, yes, there's been a drop in oil prices as to the extent of, helping the business. What do you think is going on there?
I think that has more to do with the way the regulation was implemented. we were the frontliners in calling for deregulation in the country, in the downstream petroleum sector, because we felt that was the right call to be made. Many government pressed to have been able to have the impetus to take that decision. But in implementing such deregulation, you need to take into some other broader aspects into account. And I think the fact that it was not properly baited in was part of the reason that is responsible for the fact that we're not getting to feel as much of that impact. Because if you look at the trajectory in the past, a couple of months after that decision was taken, that policy was implemented, you find out that the price spiked up. It spiked up to a point where it went up to even close to 1,500 naira. And immediately that had an impact on on inflation in the economy. And over a couple of months, that has started. We're beginning to see the positives from the regulation, that the prices are gradually coming down. But the propensity of the prices coming down would determine the amount of impact it has on the real sector of our economy, as against the propensity it had when these prices spiked up to as far as 1,500. Because when it spiked up to 1,500, propensity immediately felt by everybody on the street, by the common man on the street, because you find out that immediately there was a widespread inflation spike. And that immediately has that impact on the average person on the road, on the street. But the propensity of this drop is not as impactful as it went up. That's why it is not trickling down. And on the other hand, the way the policy was implemented, my call was, as at then, the federal government should have gotten the NNPC to get its hands completely off that space. Now, the NNPC is on one hand the judge in its own case, because the NNPC tries to regulate the downstream sector, and at the same time, the
part
NNPC...
of the players.
Are the players. So when you do that, you find out that inefficiency of the NNPC, it's quite glaring for everybody to see. So with its excesses and all of that, all the policies that they will come up with to regulate that sector is obviously going to be coming at the expense of their own deficiencies. So these are the issues you're looking at. So our call would be for the NNPC to immediately, as a matter of fact, they should take off their hands off it. They should take off their hands off the importation of petroleum products, or they should take off their hands off, in fact, they should spin off the refineries, spin it off to the private sector, and now play the true role of regulation. Regulation in the point of view of regulating the excesses of the private sector, so that they don't go beyond where they should go, and stay back and be that watchdog for the average man in the street. I think that's what they should do. And immediately they do that, the prices will definitely fall lower than where it is. It will obviously come down lower than where it is, because we still believe that there's a headroom for a whole lot of refineries that are currently out of the country refining and shipping back into Nigeria. When they find out that the NNPC is off it and the market is free, it's very free and very competitive, they would have no other choice but to come back into the country to invest by setting up those refineries in Nigeria. Because if they don't do it, automatically they've been escorted out of this market in Nigeria today. Because the market Nigeria has in the downstream sector, arguably, in fact, not arguably, is the biggest in Africa.
Yeah.
And in the world, most countries had already started the energy migration. They started migrating into what we call renewables, greener sources of energies, and all of that. Just like what we have in Nigeria. There are some companies I know of. I know about the Bob Track Group that is investing in electric charging stations in Nigeria and across Nigeria, and it's a lot cheaper than even the fossil fuels you use to run your car. So these are all issues that would come into play on a bigger scale when the NNPC takes off its hand from the downstream. Thank you.
Okay, at the moment, what do you think is going to happen? Or any impact, any direct impact at the moment that businesses should look out for?
The state of emergency and the refinery in Port Harcourt.
Yes,
I think what the refinery in Port Harcourt contributes to the pool is quite infinitesimal. So I don't think that's going to have a spike on the petrol, the cost of the pump price. I don't think that's going to have a spike to it. What would really add that would really make you get scared? You must begin to look at it from an international point of view. Because the international effects you're going to be having would have more spikes or more effect on our local products. So if you're looking at the spike and the trajectory, I rather would want to see that the international, the cost of petrol would still be on the downward trend as against the upward trend, regardless of the issues that would have played itself out in Port Harcourt. But overall, for us, looking at it from a local perspective, from a smaller perspective, I think it doesn't augur well for the business climate. It doesn't augur well for Nigeria as a serious country that you would be having. We should find ways to resolve our issues amicably. Now, if we have issues with the system, we should wait for another electoral cycle, which is just around the corner in 2027, and try to vent our anger or try to vent our issues in the polls or on the polls. And what we need to keep learning as a people, when I mean as a people from River State or people residing in River State, we must learn to vent our issues from the point of view, or look at issues from the point of view of policies. Policies should be our focus. We should look at the candidates that have the best policies for us and work with those candidates and take away every other chaff around those candidates and work with them. And we should understand that it is constitutional that we should work for a 4-year period with that candidate. So when you lock in with a candidate, you try to work with that candidate for another 4 years. Because for us as businesses, is a stable outlook, just like as I said when we started. Is this into River State? What my investors or what would come first, paramount in my mind, is how stable the investment climate is how stable the economy is. That's what matters. So that is what I think Lagos to a large extent had been able to achieve. That stable outlook, regardless of the outlook. Even when the like of Tinubu had issues with Ambode, the focus as at then was stable outlook. So they couldn't have afforded to try to push Tinubu out there, but what they call Ambode out of the office till it got to that 4 years. Why was that important? It was important because they needed to have that stable outlook in Lagos. Yeah. And that is why today Lagos, the economy in Lagos is adjudged to be, the GDP is adjudged to be about $30 billion as against where we are. So I think we need to begin to look at issues beyond our peripheral selves. We need to look at issues from a bigger point of view and from a holistic point of view, because the potentials we have in River State far outstrips what most people could only think about.
Absolutely. River State plays a major role in our oil revenue as a country. And I'm wondering, with these disruptions now bringing the major line on about Nigeria at the time, truly read that the bid for when it comes to oil production, for the country to be stable and for business, use disrupt of the new, not do the disruption.
Well, I think it's quite unfortunate because they currently act to speak on obviously to that extent will send signals out of even the Nigerian context, the Nigerian economy. Then it even cause a further spike internationally because cause a spike in national.
Because our contribution
happens. That brings it back home because the current trajectory of the petroleum prices going down would obviously shift
True.
And immediately it does shift and it starts going up, then even the marginal people that still were enjoying on the pump price would obviously be eroded. It would now afford for the prices of petroleum products to even go up internationally and locally. So we don't want this to happen. This is not the right to, and we should to that. And well, I think what they need to do to protect businesses from all of this is they need to see things from a broader perspective. Obviously, they need to begin to look at issues from a broader perspective, and they need to understand that that we must all have that same focus, stable outlook. We must all work consciously towards achieving that stable outlook for us, for the businesses and for all of it. But the fact that we're having a state of it, to a large extent, try to ameliorate some of the issues that would have been spinning out of this whole shenanigans. So I think, from that point of view, I think that's good. But most importantly, the government needs to find ways where it could reach the business community halfway in mitigating against these issues and then ameliorating some of the challenges that would be coming out of this whole situation.
Okay, that's the president at Rivers Entrepreneurs and Investors Forum, Mr. Bobmanuel Ibifiri, breaking it all down there for us. When you look at the explosion, when you look at yes, there's a landing cost happening, but then we also have this whole issue boils down to a time where Rivers State, there's been a state of emergency declared. While all of the debate is going on right now, I mean, you listen to the news at 2, you see that debates is on it at the National Assembly. While we're sorting out all of that, the businesses and what it's doing to them, it's quite glaring. So if you're listening to me right now, I'd like you to pick up your phone and call me and tell me what your concerns are. If you're a business person, if you work in a business environment, if you own your own business or you work for someone, I would love to hear your thoughts. This is your show. Let's talk figures at this point. What's next for businesses is the big question on the show today. 0817-923-0002 is the number to call. You can also call 0817-923-0003. What are your concerns? We had an explosion, and that explosion could possibly affect one of Nigeria's biggest oil pipeline, and so our oil production may be dropping anytime soon. And so while we were happy on Monday that the landing cost of importing petrol dropped to 797 naira, and we were still trying to wrap our heads around why that hasn't reflected at filling stations till date, even though the likes of Dangote is doing 115 naira per litre. And we're still buying at 890 naira per litre here in River State. And why that hadn't reflected, and we're all hoping it would, the explosion happens and now instead of emergency, what's next for Rivers businesses is what I'm asking on the show today. And what are your concerns? Yes, you can call me 0817-923-0009. I have Chidi calling in from Port Harcourt. Hello, Chidi. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes. Welcome to Talking Figures.
For those of us there in Port Harcourt, are doing business here in Port Harcourt. Well, I don't think the issue of the state of emergency is actually going to affect our business as long as whoever it is that is in charge does the right things they were supposed to do. The only thing is that the explosion, just like you said, well, I don't know who is doing it. Whoever is doing it, thinking that probably is affecting the federal government, should also know that those of us here in the state will be more affected. Because tomorrow, the federal government will tell you now they want to do a lot of overhauling, and they start spending money they were supposed to use on something else. So they should understand that fact. Bombing anywhere does not change the fact that a state of emergency has already been declared. So for me, just everybody to shift their swords, and then we'll see how far it goes, and not bombing things. But for the businesses, I don't think it's going to affect us.
Okay. Thank you for calling, Chidi. He thinks he does not. The state of emergency no concern him. That's like the simple way to summarize his thoughts. What do you think, Mr. Bobmanuel?
Well, yeah, the issue around the state of emergency really might not have that direct impact on some businesses, but definitely it would have a impact. It will have a major consequence on different businesses. Okay. Yes, it will. It will have definitely. It will have. But the issue is the propensity. It might not trickle down immediately to everybody on the street, but as we speak, the country would be losing a whole lot of money on a daily basis based on issues surrounding the blow-ups and all of that.
Yes.
So it will take some time before we begin to feel the impact.
Okay.
But basically, I think it has been nipped on the bud, and we hope that the measures that is put in place could calm free nerves, and that's what we hope for as businesses.
Now let's take this call. Alex calls in from Port Harcourt. Hello, Alex.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, welcome to Talking Figures.
Yeah, okay. Concerning the recent happenings in River State,
and businesses.
Anyone cannot be directly or indirectly affected by this state of emergency. Fine and good. I would not in any way support any oil sabotage or pipeline being blown up. But this is exactly what a responsible government would have thought of. Because if you have a threat coming, maybe in your compound, and somebody is saying, if you do this, this is what will happen. There's a need for somebody to be very careful of that threat and to mitigate, to make sure that you do something to mitigate that threat from happening. And if the people are saying, don't do this, we own this state, and this is what we want to happen, the government of the day, being a responsible government, would have listened and desist from hastily running into that decision they took yesterday. I'm advising my brothers who are blowing out this pipeline to hurt their feelings, to hurt their emotions, and work towards a better River State. The government of the day should also have a rethink. This is not all about one man's show. It is about the collective effort of the entire Nigerians. The Nigerians in diaspora are not also happy with what is going on. And there's a debate on the National Assembly now. People are not happy. So if the government of the day wants to make a decision, they should be careful. This is a democratic system. We're not in the military system. So they should be careful to do something that will not trigger emotions or trigger crisis like the way we are seeing. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Alex. And just before I get back to my guest, let's take this message on WhatsApp brought in from by Chukwuemeka. He says, greetings, everyone. It's so sad. Brilliant people are psyching people to push government off businesses and thus leaving governance to so-called second-class citizens. They are thus discouraging people from working together for their territory or nation and working for only themselves. We have thus sold NEPA, NITEL, EPCL, NAFCON, and the rest of them, and still want to sell more. If we don't all school each other to take care, may God please continue to take control in Jesus' name. Amen. A lot was put in one message. You tried to do that. Okay. Now, Mr. Bobmanuel, quickly now, how should businesses position going forward with what's coming or what's to come in the next 6 months?
Well, what's to come? I think businesses are a little bit immune out of it. I think it has more to do with the political gladiators. Businesses obviously we're non-political. We don't, at the investors forum, we don't preach political sides and all of it. So for us as businesses, we would encourage the community to keep focus on what we're doing and try as much as possible to play less of politics and put more of your interest in the economy and in business related activities. I think that's what we are preaching. But for all of that to happen, we need the free nerves to become. we need to get the functionaries to see how they could calm the fraying herbs and allow for peace to reign. That's basically what our call would be. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, President at Rivers Entrepreneurs and Investors Forum. Mr. Bobmanuel Ibifiri has been my guest. Thank you so much for making time for this.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Okay. All right, and that's really about it on the show today. Talking Figures has been about looking at our realities. I mean, this is nearing the end of Q1, the first quarter of the year. And a lot has already happened in 3 months. Businesses are bracing up. And while I understand that there isn't any direct impact, the reality is that the activities at the polity would always trickle down and affect the business sector. The business world must brace up, is my own thoughts. And what's to come depends on the choices we make. And what's to come also depends on how you respond to them. And swift response is perhaps advised so that you're not taking unawares. Follow the news, understand the news, and so they can make more informed decisions. Thank you so much for being a part of Talking Figures today. We do this every Wednesday, 2 p.m. My name is Choma Izenwafo. Stay tuned. We'll have a message for you. After that, the news comes at 3. And then Sam Chinedu will be here with hard facts. Stay tuned.